So.
Nice trading horror stories.
Okay. So. Answer that question I asked you earlier, yes, they're coming. Okay.
Sounded relieved. You picked the race. I'm here. Tomorrow morning.
You will make sure she pays for that. All right, let me pray for us. We'll start. Father, I thank you so much. I thank you for who you are. I thank you for loving us. I thank you for sending your son. I thank you for giving us your word. Lord, I pray this evening that you would guide us and direct us as we study, and Lord, that you would be that you would be honored in all that we say and do. And Lord, I thank you and I give you the praise in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So we are in. We look at Genesis, and I'm trying to figure out what is wrong. Sorry, guys, I have not a whole lot coming through my monitor. I'm not quite sure why. So, if you're watching, I'm going to check one more thing here and see what's going on here. It's only, that's right, I'll seems to be going through, it's not going through the, it's not coming the lavalier at all. So, did I turn the lavalier on? Okay.
That's a big conversation with himself.
Here we go. Just so you know, if you're watching online, if you don't turn the microphone on, you won't get the sound. So I am going to hope that Freddie will take that out. So, yes. I am a trained professional, though. Do not try this at home. And so, anyway, this is why I have this in front of me, so I can sort of see what's happening. But anyway, we have been looking at Jacob, and let's ask this, just by way of review, what do we know about Jacob so far?
Not so easy to say after last.
Salesman of the Bible.
He's learning that he's not the only con man in the world.
Or car salesman.
Okay, yeah. He is, Jacob, he's just one of those guys that you just, I don't know, you just, it's, I kind of, you kind of love to hate him in some ways. That, but the other thing I like about Jacob and the account of Jacob is the fact that sometimes life is fair. And, you think about that Jacob, he schemed against his brother, and he got schemed against by his father-in-law. That the younger, right, they went in there, and the deceit took place at night when his father's eyes were dim and he couldn't see as well. And in Jacob's case, that happened at night when he was too polluted to see too well. And so, yeah, I can't think of any other reason, but anyway, they
Because if it's not that, it's a special kind of stupid.
It's the kind of stupid that he will never live down. I mean, it's one of those things that I can't figure out which one would be worse. Okay?
Sarah going to Abraham and saying, you didn't only give me away once, you gave me away twice. Okay? Or Rachel going to Jacob and say, you didn't even know it was me. So I don't know which one. I really don't want to know which one is worse. And that's not something I ever want to even have to deal with or contemplate. So anyway, but Jacob he's learning that, and the biggest thing about Jacob that we find is that Jacob's relationship with God was transactional. And I really want us to understand, because Jacob believed in Yahweh. Okay, he did not question whether or not Yahweh was God. He actually didn't even question whether or not he was going to serve Yahweh. The difference was, however, that he was not going to walk in an intimate relationship with Yahweh. That God was there and God was good as long as God was going to be good to him. And so I'll give back a little bit of what you've given me, says the man whose dad is richer than God. And so as long as you're giving me a whole bunch of stuff, I'll keep 90, I'll give you 10. And so, but let's not get close. And I'm going to live my life, you live your life. And we'll keep things on a very business level. Okay? Never happens today, right? No, never. That and here's the thing that I think is really bad. I would talk about it in this class. I wouldn't do it in any other class that I would teach, just because of the nature of what this class is that too often the church teaches that transactional relationship with God. Is that, I mean, I grew up with this, that we do that with giving. That how many times have we been told, make sure you give your best to God, and God will bless you. And so we actually, I grew up with this mess that you take your seed offering, put it against your heart, and then give it, because if you do that, God's going to bless you. If you hold back from God, He's going to hold back from you. Should I give on the gross or the net? Well, do you want God to bless you on the gross? Bless you on the net. I mean, again, that's not necessarily the wrong thing, but the problem is that when we go about this idea that if I do this, God is obligated to this. We have this transactional relationship, and there is no real relationship. There's no intimacy there. Yeah, Eric?
I was going to say, it does extend into other places beyond giving. Dancing, movies, smoking, ...
Yeah. There's that's the ultimate. What comes out of that is legalism. Is this, and the hedonism comes on the other side. But that's not Jacob's issue. Jacob's issue is, hey, I'm going to hang with God as long as you do it, as long as you bless me, as long as you do this, and as long as you stay on my side, I'm going to serve you, and I'm going to give you a tenth back. So, but what we find is that as Jacob is living his life, he is making some very, very stupid decisions. And one of the things that the thing that I keep missing here is I keep missing Jacob bringing God into his relationship. Okay, that we don't see that with Rachel. I'll work 7 years for her. Now, I'm a basically lazy individual. Freely admit that. So, why not say, God, why, we know that God's going to bless him. God's going to give him seed. Why does he have to do that? Why doesn't he just come up and say, hey, that, Lord, this is Rachel's the one for me. I think. What do you think, Lord? The Bible says if we delight ourselves in the Lord, He'll give us the desires of our heart. That's not just a New Testament principle. I mean, that's a principle from Genesis chapter 2. Not a whole lot saying about Genesis 1. So, but Genesis 2, when God starts interacting with mankind, is that not still the same? Does God still not want to bless His people? Does God want to walk in relationship? Yeah, but because Jacob doesn't have that kind of relationship, what he's doing is he's actually saying, I'm going to take the system around me, and next week I'm going to take a look at all the ites in the area, so that we'll kind of take a break from Jacob and we'll take a look at the Hittites and all the other ites around and where they came from, where they are, and so on. And they all have a lot of their cultures have a lot of things in common. This is one of those things. So Jacob is going to work his way for his bride, and he's going to take the culture around him. So in other words, from our way of thinking, Jacob is going to hang with the kingdom of the world rather than working in the kingdom of God. Now, he doesn't have this understanding yet, okay, so I'm not, we don't want to put that on him, but that's the reality, is that he's going to do he's going to go with what the kingdom of the world says, or what the society says, or what the culture says that he should do. When in reality, as a child of God, he should actually be counterculture. And the way he's counterculture is by saying, Lord, what do you want me to do? Could God have worked a way to where he would have gotten Rachel the first time around without the scheming? What's that?
I think so.
I think so.
It's at least reasonable to say that he could, but he doesn't. And so, because he is scheming, he is going to learn from this, just not for a while, that Jacob is going to continue in that. So he finds out that he gets, I don't even know, nothing I can say, it's not going to come out wrong, that we find out that he is duped. Shall we say that? And he wakes up with the wrong woman. From Genesis chapter 2, the very beginning, how has God set it up for the family?
One man,
One woman, one family.
One husband, one wife, one family. Who is the rightful, in God's eyes, wife of Jacob?
Leah.
Jacob says, this is wrong. I want somebody else. And his father-in-law says, okay. Man, dude, I thought you knew. I'm sorry. I thought I had every understanding of knowing what's going on. I didn't tell you, nobody else told you, but I thought you knew. This is how we do things here in Haran. But have I got a deal for you? You give me 7 more years. I'll give you the one you want. And you know what? All you got to do is just do the weak thing so you don't embarrass Leah. And I'll take you at your word. Because after all, I'm your dad. I'm your father-in-law, right? So Laban's going to get 14 years of work out of Jacob. And the part that's amazing to me is that, and again, we don't know the answer to this, but had Jacob been walking in relationship with God and not in a transactional relationship with God, we have no idea how this would have worked out, but I can guarantee you it would have been different than the way it did work out. And that's one of the things that we're going to see with Jacob, is the fact that, if ever we want to believe that there is a royal grant that was given to Abraham, it is in the life of Jacob and his sons. Because if ever there was a reason to pull the plug on this entire family, it's with these guys. And Jacob is the one. So he's going to continue dealing with things in an ungodly manner, because he is buying in to the system of the world. And so what does that tell us as Christians in the 21st century? What can we learn from Jacob? Because remember, a wise person learns from their own mistakes. A really wise person learns from somebody else's mistakes. So what can we learn from Jacob, and what does this mean for us?
don't do it our way.
Check with God first.
Or maybe in the positive, do things God's way.
I tell people this all the time. The right thing is always the right thing. When you do things God's way, good things happen. When you don't do things God's way, bad things many times happen. Not always, but it'll always come back to bite us in the end. And so the point is that but here's the thing. Did Jacob cease to be the child of the promise?
No.
No matter how stupid he was. Now, he paid the penalty for his stupidity. But no matter what he did, he was still the child of promise. Because the concept of being the child of the promise had everything to do with God's character. It had nothing to do with Jacob's. And so, when we are stupid, or whatever the fancy word for that is, I don't know, and we decide that we're going to follow what the kingdom of the world wants us to do, rather than what God wants us to do, does God write us off?
No.
No, he does something far less fun. He does something far less fun called discipline.
Yeah, we end up paying the penalty. We end up paying a price, just like Jacob does, but the point is we're still his. And I think that that's important for us to realize, is that throughout Scripture we find that God is faithful. And God is faithful to Abraham. He was faithful to Isaac. He's faithful to Jacob. He's faithful to Jacob's idiot sons. He is faithful to us. And that's something that we can hold on to because, again, we don't... See, if Jacob if he would have recognized early on that Yahweh was going to be faithful to him, that he could enter into a relationship with him that is not transactional, his life would have been so much better. Because in the process of doing things the way of the world, now it's really funny when I read commentaries, and I read this, that Jacob ends up with 2 wives and 2 concubines so that the promise that God gave that he would be fruitful and multiply could be fulfilled. I'm like, wow. Okay, yeah, tell me about that, guys. What do you think?
Dude.
I think God used that so that he could accomplish his purpose, even though Jacob screwed it up. God's like, all right, fine, we'll do it that way.
I mean, again, well, first of all, Jacob could have had 12 sons with Leah. Okay, he had 6 with her, so he already went half. Okay, and that's what somebody he didn't really like that much. Okay, I mean, really, his one wife, one wife pimps him out to another wife so that he could have more kids. It's one of those things that they, I joke the fact that, he and Leah got along at least 6 times and probably a few more. But the point was, God could have done that. God could have made him a great nation out of just the one wife. He didn't need that. But the other thing was this, is that even if he did everything wrong, even if he messed up, and he says, oops, I'm sorry, I messed up, I got the wrong one, could God still have blessed that marriage? Could it still have been happy? Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely could have still been happy. They could have still had a good time. Was it, again, when he realized that, okay, I blew it. Yeah, I did. But God can work in that. And so again, we still do things the right way. And I've had so many conversations with folks who, especially in this area, that you get, 2 people, they get pregnant when they're young, whatever. And we just, you don't want to make 2 mistakes. And so either we're going to kill the kid or we're going to, because that's not making 2 mistakes. And, or you go your way, and whatever, you just pay your child support. And then we wonder why kids are all screwed up. There was a day we called that a shotgun wedding. And you know what? Many of them worked. In fact, I would argue that back in the day, Almost all of them worked. Was that God's number one plan? No. Nope. Can God work in plan B? Absolutely. Absolutely. Can God bless in plan B? Yeah. And so Jacob takes what's bad, makes it worse when he gets the second wife, and then he says, hold my beer, and I'm really going to make it bad. When Rachel goes to the culture, just like Sarah did, and said, okay, God closed my womb, so therefore, I'm going to help God out, and I'm going to give him my maid. And poor Jacob's going, help, help, as he is forced to go in and get to know the maid in the biblical sense. And a number of times. All this so that Rachel can feel good about herself. And then Leah, of course, not want to be outdone, calls her maid over and says, okay, what are we going to do? What's the plan? And poor Jacob again, going, help, help, I don't know what to do. And so you end up with a capital D dysfunctional family. Where can this go wrong? I mean, really, right? 2 wives, 2 concubines, a whole bunch of kids, and they're all having kids out there because the wives are fighting with each other because they can't get along with the sandbox because dad is too stupid to actually take the stand and say, we're going to do things God's way. Have I missed anything? That's Jacob. But we have, now Jacob he's getting wealthy. He's working for his father-in-law. And so they're going back and forth on the kids. And then after Joseph is born, this is in verse 22 of chapter 30. And then God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb, and she conceived and bore a son, and said, God has taken away my reproach, and she called his name Joseph, saying, may the Lord add to me another son. So before we get off of these, the horse is almost dead, but not quite, so we'll stay on him. That one of the things that I always find is interesting here is the fact that they keep attributing back to God. That, that Dan was born because God has judged me as I gave up my maid. That so Daniel means God is my judge. It's my name. I love my name. I don't like where it came from. But I like Daniel, like the prophet, more than here. But the point is that that somehow they want to bring God into this as though I got my way. I use the system of the world to do it. I'm acting on my own, so therefore I am deciding for myself what's right and wrong, and therefore God's going to bless it. And again, none of us have ever done that, right? No Christian has ever done that in their life. Yeah, Eric?
Not to mention they're using the names of the kids to goad each other. Good grief.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being named because your mother feels like she got one over on the other wife?
Yeah.
I mean, that can't do anything for the kid. It can't help the kid's self-worth any at all,
But okay, let's put it in perspective, okay? They could have been sickly and weakly,
True.
which were Naomi's kids, okay? So at least you're Asher, it's because I'm happy. I'm happy I got over on my sister, right? So therefore I'm going to call him Asher. So so each of these, they're all out there and they're giving digs back and forth. And so like I say, this is not one of those happy families. This is not what HBO puts out there on Big Love or whatever that stupid show was. From the Mormon who had all these wives or something like that. This is not that. This is competition back and forth. This is using kids to get back at one another. This is all these areas, and thinking in this whole mess, in all of chapter 30, verses 1 to 24, the question is, where is Jacob? Jacob is just going along with this. There's now he learned the no leadership from his father. Okay, I mean the fruit didn't fall that far from the tree here.
Would it be fair to say
But-
that he's in bed with this game?
I think I'm glad it took me a while to actually get that thing turned over. So if you're watching online, I did not have him repeat that on purpose. So anyway, but in the process, you remember we got 7 more years. Okay, so in these 7 years, Jacob's having kids. He's having kids all over the place. He's got people pregnant at the same time. It's just a mess. But can I get somebody to read 25 verse? How about? Oh gosh, is there a good place to stop here? Let's go 25 to 36. 25 to 36.
And it came to pass, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said to Laban, "Send me away that I may go to my own place and to my country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served you, and let me go, for you know my service which I have done for you." And Laban said to him, "Please stay, if I have found favor in your eyes, for I have learned by experience that the Lord has blessed me for your sake." Then he said, "Name me your wages, and I will give it." So Jacob said to him, "You know how I have served you, and how your livestock has been with me. For what you had before I came was little, and it has increased to a great amount. The Lord has blessed you since my coming, and now when shall I also provide for my own house?" So he said, "What shall I give you?" And Jacob said, You shall not give me anything. If you will do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep your flocks. Let me pass through all your flock today, removing from there all the speckled and spotted sheep, and from the brown ones among the lambs, and the spotted and the speckled among the goats, and these shall be my wages. So my righteousness will answer for me in time to come. When the subject of my wages comes before you, every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and brown among the lambs will be considered stolen, if it is with me. And Laban said, "Oh, that it were according to your word." So he removed that day the male goats that were speckled and spotted, and the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had some white in it, and all the brown ones among the lambs, and gave them into the hand of his sons. Then he put 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks.
So we're setting this up. That Jacob says, "Hey, I want to go. Got my kids. I want to leave." And now Laban is not stupid. Laban understands that, hey, I am being blessed because you're here. And this is the part that's really amazing to me, is that throughout the land, all the time of the patriarchs, everybody understood, first of all, who Yahweh was at this point in time. Now, to be fair, he was one of many in the pantheon. Okay, he was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He was just one in Laban's view. Laban was not a follower of Yahweh. But he did understand that Jacob was being blessed. Now, because everybody in this time period, with the exception really of Abraham at this point, and Abraham's gone now, but he, as we looked at the pantheon before we started with Abraham, we understood that this is how everybody dealt with their gods. Because I mean, they were, I would call them demons, even if they made themselves known. But the thing is that you didn't get intimate with the gods of the people. Everything was transactional. So again, Jacob's learned this, and so has Laban. And Laban has understood the fact that you are blessed, because remember, in the time of the patriarchs, that you know that you're blessed by God if you have a lot of stuff. And so Jacob is doing well, and Laban is doing well as long as Jacob is there. And so Laban understood that the reason I'm doing so well is because you're here with me. And that has to do with your God. So what's the deal that they make here? Now remember who is the one who is initiating the deal. Because Laban is going to get set up here. So what is the deal?
The deal is anything that's not fully white belongs to Jacob. I'm going to pull out what I got, and if I get any white, if I get any white in my flock, it belongs to you.
Yeah.
And that way, when I'm ready to go, you'll know I haven't stolen anything from you.
Yeah.
There was a great Far Side I saw a while back. Obviously, it's been a long time. That this guy has this branding iron, and it says, "This cow belongs to Ernest T. whatever." And the cows are looking at him like, "Oh my gosh," that thing was huge. And so, but yeah, they want to make sure there was no doubt. And so Jacob is going to set Laban. Says, okay, if it's the speckled ones are mine. It's got white on them, yours. Laban says, "Cool, we got this." So what does Laban do?
He took them all. He stole them from himself.
Steal is such a harsh word, Freddie, that I would expect the Brits to be understated. He moved them for their own safety, and so he took them 3 days away. He went through all the land, took all the speckled ones, and he took them out to 3 days' journey. Gave them to his other sons, and said, "Hey, take these things away." So all Jacob has left are white ones. Okay? So, can I get somebody to read verses 37 to the end of the chapter? And then we'll talk about some really bizarre stuff that shows up in commentaries.
Then Jacob took fresh sticks of poplar and almond and plane trees and peeled white streaks in them, exposing the white of the sticks. He set the sticks that he had peeled in front of the flocks in the troughs, that is, the watering places, where the flocks came to drink. And since they bred when they came to drink, I didn't know that. We learn something new every day. Since they bred when they came to drink, the flocks bred in front of the sticks, and so the flocks brought forth striped, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob separated the lambs and set the faces of the flocks toward the striped, and all the black in the flock of Laban. He put his own droves apart and did not put them with Laban's flock. Whenever the stronger of the flock were breeding, Jacob would lay the sticks in the troughs before the eyes of the flock, that they might breed among the sticks. But for the feeder of the flock, he would not lay them there. Feebler of the flocks, he would not lay them there. So the feebler would be Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. Thus the man increased greatly and had large flocks, female servants and male servants, and camels and donkeys.
All right.
This
Was that?
I learned something today.
Yeah.
You know what I'm not saying? You guys would be so proud of me right now. That it's been a long day. So Jacob comes up with this brilliant plan. I'm gonna get some sticks and I'm gonna whittle them down someplace. I'm gonna have these sheep go out and they're gonna breed in front of these things, right? Now, there are some fascinating commentaries out there that are talking. That I have read about the science of the poplar sticks, which is ridiculous. I have read about the fact that Jacob was a syncretist, so he believed in magic. I have read that God gave him a specific way to do this because God was going to work a miracle. Now, of course, I'm reading through this and I don't see that. Okay, and so let's think of some possibilities here, okay? That, first of all, remember who set this up. Jacob is the one who set this up. Jacob knew exactly what he was doing. Now, what did Jacob do for 14 years?
10 Laban's sheep.
Do you think that Jacob knew a thing or two about Laban's sheep?
Thing or two.
a thing or two.
Is all white a recessive gene or is it a dominant trait?
Recessive.
Okay, are blue eyes dominant or recessive?
Recessive.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's very possible. Now, it doesn't say. Okay, and this is the things that keep people like me up at night. It's like, okay, you know what, it'd be really nice if you just given us something out there. It doesn't say. It does give us a lot of clues, though. The first clue it gives us, Jacob set it up. Jacob knew what he was doing. Jacob knew he wanted the speckled sheep. He did not want the white sheep. Now, for 14 years, he's watching these sheep breed. He knows which sheep are going to give you white ones, which ones are going to give you speckled ones. Probably 2 white ones. They're probably going to you have a better shot of getting a white one. You've got 2 white ones. White and speckled, probably going to give you a speckled. Anybody have cats? You know exactly what this looks like, right? Okay. Your dog, you know exactly what people look exactly what it looks like. Okay. I mean, there's always the odd one out, but that's pretty much the way it is. I think what's happening here was that Jacob knew his sheep. And so the sticks he's putting up there, I think it's very possible. In fact, in some places, it even says that he was putting up some kind of defenses. He was keeping he was keeping the weak ones away from the strong ones. And because apparently the weaker ones were the ones we don't have the genetic makeup of these sheep. It would be nice if we did, but we don't. They're long since been like dust right now. Yeah, Eric.
But the offspring of that breed shows recessive genes generally does have health problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably going to be weaker. So I think what happened was I don't think we have magic here. Okay, I'm not going to discount God's hand because God said He was going to bless him. So I'm not discounting that at all. But I think what you have mainly is the fact that Jacob knew his sheep, and we also know.
Sheep respond to fashion influencers.
What's that?
This is not the sheep respond to fashion influencers.
He could have also been conditioning them for 14 years that you breathe when you're in front of these rods that are sticking in the ground, and you don't when you're over there. I mean,
Steph, I have never been more proud of you at this point. That is the most cynical thing that I have ever heard you say. I am thinking to myself, I have succeeded, and beyond my wildest dreams. I am so proud. I'm going to take a second here and just accept this for a second, okay? That was deliciously cynical and is probably 100% right. It's the fact that, yeah, because again, remember, now, here's the thing. I don't think Jacob woke up one day and said, I want to leave. Okay? And so the thing is that Jacob is the schemer. He's the used car salesman. So I think you're absolutely right. I think that he got these sheep ready to go, and that he, because look, I got to, my brother has sheep. Okay? He has Shetland sheep. He has expensive sheep that who are always starving. But I have seen his sheep get water. And I got to tell you, folks, his sheep, when Mr. Tumnus would go out there and get a drink of water, he wasn't going, okay, where are the ladies? Okay, this was not something that was constantly on his mind at this point. Okay, now there were certain times of the year that it was constantly on his mind, but he didn't need water for that to happen. So I think there's something in what you said, Steph. I think that there's a way that Jacob had a plan in place, and Jacob worked the plan. Now God blessed the plan. I mean, I'm not again. Don't. This is not an area. God is still in control. God is faithful, but God was able to work that. Yeah, Eric.
No. I'm thinking. I'm not talking.
Okay.
Okay. If you see smoke coming out online, that's Eric thinking. Anyway, so.
I feel incredibly fulfilled by her.
Yeah. That's so what's that?
I'm confused.
Okay.
Now the sheep, I understand you would want white ones for the wool that you could dye and whatnot.
Not necessarily.
Well, why would you want white ones then? For what reason?
Well, Jacob didn't want white ones. Jacob wanted the speckled ones.
No, I think what Tom is saying is Jacob played into Laban's greed. Because he offered Laban the all white ones, and that would be the more marketable wool because it's pure, yada, yada, yada. It's the harder to get.
Yeah.
You can dye it, do whatever color you want, whatever you want. As for the goats, hoop-de-doo.
Mohair sweaters, man. Mohair sweaters.
Those are mohair goats?
The mohair, that's goat.
Well, the sacrifice wasn't in play then.
No.
Yeah.
He wanted, but again, remember, how do you, you don't carry your gold with you. You bring your flocks with you. So having the goats and having this is all making him money. But the thing is, he's getting breeding stock. Remember, he's leaving. So he's getting the best breeding stock. Because remember, see, the white is still there. I mean, the gene for the white is still there. You don't have the speckled from the white, but you can get the white from the speckled. Okay? Jacob knows sheep. And he is keeping the strong ones together, rolling the dice, because he knows his sheep. And Laban, who so far is crafty, but he's not, shall we say, the sharpest tool in the box all the time. And as Eric said, that Jacob was using Laban's greed against him. So what Laban thinks, because apparently, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Laban's not hanging out with the sheep. He doesn't need to. He's got a stupid son-in-law to do it for him. So Laban thinks all I have to do is take the speckled sheep that I have away, leave only white ones left, and therefore we're going to have white and white, and we're going to end up with only having white. And Jacob's like, I know this guy's better. And that my brother has sheep. He knows his sheep. He knows what comes out of these sheep. It's incredible. That he has a new one named Dan. His Dan and Wayne, they're both going to freezer camp this week or next week. But so yeah, he's got Sarah. My mother's name was Sarah. So yeah, he names them all. But but the thing is that and Sarah's like sheep trash. It's really kind of funny. But he knows what comes out of them. And I would have no way of knowing. I mean, he's got like a grand champion, Mr. Tumnus is a grand champion or something like that. So they've got good stuff that comes out of them. But he could tell you what color's coming out. You know, why is that? Because Wayne and Jeff know the sheep. I don't. I have no intention of getting to know the sheep. I don't really care. They're cute. That's all I need to know. And so Jacob is getting richer and richer. And I love this because the schemer who got schemed is now scheming again. And that's just kind of how we roll in our family. I mean, we could be honest with each other, right? But no, it's much easier to do it this way. And playing games is better. And that's what they do. So, chapter 31. So Jacob is loaded. Now, Laban is getting sheep. He's just not getting the stronger ones. And I think there comes a point in time where Laban has to realize that maybe I should just kind of quit while I'm behind, because whatever I do out here, my son-in-law is going to beat me. So can I get somebody to read 31? How about verses, let's go 1 to 3.
And he heard the words of Laban's sons, saying, Jacob has taken away all that was our father's, and all of that which was our father's has he gotten all this glory. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him like it was before. And the Lord said unto Jacob, Return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you. Time to get out, boy.
Yeah, there's the picture that I have here, and it could be all completely wrong here, is that God is sitting there waiting. Of course, they don't know this, but there's the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. They're hanging out. They're looking out around here, watching all the stuff that's going on there. They're probably laughing, like they're watching, I don't know, Dynasty or something, and J.R. Ewing's getting over on somebody. And then, now, again, Laban's, I got to ask the question, how long did it take? Because Jacob got filthy rich on this. And so I got to wonder if Laban is just like some gambler look, like the next time I'm going to roll snake eyes or something. I don't know. And so, but his sons, yes, yeah, but the sons realize, hey, Dad, the longer we go here, if we keep doing this here, we're going to end up being broke, and all we're going to have are a bunch of lame sheep. And so they, I love this. This is in the ESV. And Jacob saw that Laban did not regard him with favor as before. What the King James says, his countenance was not the same. And so, and so God intervened and said, "Okay, Jake, time for you to go home."
How did he do that?
What's that?
Was it audible? How was that? I'm just curious.
My learned theological answer is I don't know. And the beauty of this is this, Tom, is that neither does anybody else. Okay, so this has bothered me forever in Genesis and in this early time. My guess is, okay, this is Dan's guess, that I will have 3 days out of the week. This happens to be one of those 3. That I think that there was some sort of an audible voice. That because Spirit's not speaking to Spirit because Jacob's not born again. So he doesn't have the Holy Spirit living inside of him, so we can't have that. That I don't see, God's not appearing, because if he does, then Jacob's toast. So he's not sending, if he's going to send the angel of the Lord, I think it would tell us. I think it would tell us if he sent another angel, but God spoke to him, so it could have been in a dream, could have been an audible voice, could have been any number of ways. But whatever it was, Jacob knew what it was. Yeah.
Or just the common sense message from God. Father-in-law's not happy anymore. Time to get out. Con's done.
Yeah, but you lost me on common sense with Jacob. So, it's it's anything's possible. Oh, darling, anything's possible. There's always a chance. But anyway,
every good con man knows when it's time to get out of the con.
Yeah, you would think so, but it doesn't tell us. It just says, and again, it's very specific here. And then Yahweh said to Jacob, "Return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you." So if it's just common sense, he's not having that last bit. So somehow the Lord spoke to him, and it could be a bush was burning, not consumed. I mean, for all we know, it could have been a speckled sheep. Or if you really want to rub salt in the wound, it's a white sheep, and that comes out there and says, "Okay, it's time to go." And I mean, it could have been, Aslan could have appeared from the west, or from the east. We don't know. That anyway, but he's told to go back. So, how about verse 4 to 16?
So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field to his flock, and said to them, "I see your father's countenance, that it is not favorable toward me as before. But the God of my father has been with me. And you know that with all my might I have served your father. Yet your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times, but God did not allow him to hurt me. If he said thus, the speckled shall be your wages, then all the flocks bore speckled. And if he said thus, the streaked shall be your wages, then all the flocks bore streaked. So God has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. And it happened at the time when the flocks conceived, that I lifted my eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the flocks were streaked, speckled, and gray spotted. Then the angel of God spoke to me in a dream, saying, "Jacob," and I said, "Here I am." And he said, "Lift your eyes now and see all the rams which leap on the flocks are streaked, speckled, and gray-spotted, for I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed the pillar, and where you made a vow to me. Now arise, get out of this land, and return to the land of your family. Till 13?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go through 16.
16. Then Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, Is there still any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not considered strangers by him? For he has sold us and completely consumed our money. For all these riches which God has taken from our father are really ours and our children's now. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do it.
Okay.
So Jacob is going to his wives. Time for us to go. Now the Bilhah and they're going to go anyway because they're just concubines. Okay? They don't have much choice in the matter. So he grabs his wife, says, "We're going to go," and then he throws Laban under the sheep. I mean, he really does. And he's letting them know that, hey, your dad is, he's been a little bit less than forthright with me. He has changed my wages over and over again, and so therefore God has judged him. So like I said, I never ever want to take out the plan that God has. One of the issues that we have with Jacob, however, is that, again, God uses Jacob. Jacob knows the sheep. And so, but whatever it was, God was still at work. There's no two ways about that. There's no magic here. God is at work. He gets the sheep. And how do the wives respond? It's just delicious how they respond.
What's in it for us? Because all our money's gone now from Jacob.
You have it all anyway, so let's just go.
You've got the dough. That was our father's. We're following you.
The thing is, that's not what at first they end up there. But they're complaining about the fact that what's our inheritance with our father? It's like, sweetheart, you're married to the golden calf, or the goose that lays the golden egg here. Okay, where's all of your inheritance? Your husband took it from your dad. We know these two girls have brothers. All they're going to get is a dowry. Is Laban of all we know about Laban, how generous is Laban going to be when his daughters are leaving?
Not.
Yeah, I mean, his thing is, you take them. I'm not giving you nothing. So the point is that Jacob has it all. And so they finally realize this. And they finally say, okay, whatever you want to do, go ahead and do it. So I just, how about 17 to 24?
So Jacob arose and set his sons and his wives on camels. He drove away all his livestock, all his property that he had gained, the livestock in his possession that he had acquired in Paddan Aram, to go to the land of Canaan to his father Isaac. Laban had gone to share his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's household gods. And Jacob tricked Laban, the Aramean, by not telling him that he intended to flee. He fled with all that he had and arose and crossed the Euphrates and set his face towards the hill country of Would you say through 24? Keep going? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. When it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob had fled, he took his kinsmen with him and pursued him for 7 days and followed close after him into the hill country of Gilead. But God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream by night and said to him, "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad."
So Jacob is going to go. He takes his son, takes his daughter, his wives, puts them on camels, and he takes off. He takes off in the middle of the night. Why does he take off? Yes.
I wonder how you can get that far with all those sheep and everything while Laban's out doing his work. I mean, that's a lot of time.
Because Laban's sheep were still in a secret, undisclosed location far 3 days away.
Yeah, it's,
Freddie, there's a lot of unanswered questions in this story. That, I mean, how does Jacob go to bed with the wrong wife? That doesn't make any sense either, and yet he did. And so yeah, I think it's possible that Jacob probably waited until Laban, because the sons come up and say, "Hey, there's a problem there." It's very reasonable to me that Laban goes out to try to find whatever sheep he's got left. So it's possible. Make sure that they're okay, because remember, they're all spotted. He can't bring them back, because if he brings them back, they're Jacob's. So he has to make sure that his deposit is okay in the safety deposit canyon or wherever it is.
So,
what's that?
I mean, Jacob waited until it was shearing time too, and that's time consuming.
Oh, yeah, it says it's sheep.
And they got to go to the secret undisclosed location 3 days away.
The safe place, right next to the Ark of the Covenant, right? That it's some warehouse in Maryland that he had to go to get a sheep. Because Laban can't bring them down to shear him; he has to go get them. And the thing is, I mean, when Jacob woke up and found out that all the spotted sheep are gone, he realized, hey, Dad's doing something a little shady again, which I think probably took a little bit off of the conscience of what he was doing. But the thing was that he waits until Laban's away, and then he steals away. He's going to go. Now, because the wives were not going to get what they thought they should have, Rachel steals her father's household gods. Now, I got to tell you, folks, that's low. That's low. Okay. Now, when you think about Stephen talked about this. He actually went to there was one of the museums that had a thing on. The household gods were little ones. Okay, I mean we're talking small gods here. We're not talking big ones. We're talking small gods. She takes the household gods. Now, what does this tell us about Jacob?
He had no impact in 14 years on these two gals.
Yeah.
At least not on Rachel. We don't know about Leah yet, but we know on Rachel he had absolutely no impact whatsoever. We're going to find he had no impact on his kids either. But yet, but Dan, when Rachel had Joseph, God has now opened my womb. When she gives her maid up, and the maid has children, God has judged me. So here you have Rachel. Rachel having no problem calling on God when it's convenient for her. But what we find here is the fact that Rachel had never left I'm going to call it the kingdom of the world that she was a part of. She never left where she was at. She still wanted the family gods. Now, why would Rachel want the family gods? Why do you think?
She believed that they brought prosperity and good things to her family.
Possible.
Were they made of gold?
Probably not.
She wants to deprive Dad of them.
Mean?
She wants to deprive Dad of whatever blessing they may confer on him.
Why?
Rat.
She's a what? A rat?
Because she's not getting hers.
That's how that family does things.
Yeah, she is because Laban squandered her inheritance to her husband. Okay? I mean, folks, you can't make this up. That she is angry that Dad did not hold anything back for her because hubby got it all, which means she got it all, but Laban that love me to give me anything. So I'm going to take the household gods. I'll show him. And what's that?
His old dad.
Yeah. That,
I think it was spite and nothing else. That because they really weren't worth a whole lot. Her husband is serving the most powerful God out there. What good are these things? Except to deprive Dad. And if she believed that whatever was out, because remember, right now, nobody has a relationship with God. Any God. Everything is always transactional. So if I can take these away, I'm gonna limit Dad's ability to do well, because now he doesn't have his gods. And Laban finds out.
But normally, wouldn't any inheritance go to the sons as opposed to the daughter?
They would get a dowry. And the dowry is based on how wealthy Dad is. Remember, her husband had made Dad very wealthy. The problem is that hubby knew that Daddy wasn't going to share any of it, so hubby went and got it from Daddy, thinking that Dad was going to get over on son-in-law. Son-in-law said, oh, no, you're not. And so therefore, the wives ended up better with the husband, but yet they're still mad at Dad because Dad didn't give them the dowry to make him feel good. What's that?
The dowry is theirs,
These
right?
are-
It's their
these are-
security.
yeah, and I think that's what.
So they don't have anything of their own, even though their husband's got it
From
all.
Eric's point, yeah, that's,
The dowry belongs to them. If anything happens to Jacob, we found this out with Naomi, right? With Naomi, when her husband died, there was nothing, she was destitute. And so the same thing is true there. That dowry is theirs. And so even though hubby had all the money, it's still, again, remember, we know how happy this family is, right? I mean, we know how close everybody is. We're all one big happy family, everybody getting along, right? No, if anything happens to Jacob, then the boys are going to be fighting over this. And especially from Rachel's perspective, at this point, Rachel's got one, and then she's got, through her maid, she's got what, 3 others? 2 others? 2 others. And then, so because Benjamin isn't born yet. So, now Leah's in better shape. She's got 6, plus her maids. So, I mean, I think it speaks to us that Rachel's the one who took them. Because without having that dowry, she's wealthy, but yet she's also kind of in a precarious situation. Yeah, Steph?
Yeah, I was going to say, when you were asking why she took them, I thought maybe it was, I thought it might have been more spiritual security, but you agreed with Eric, so I didn't say anything. Because it was security, but not spiritual.
Yeah, and the reason I would say that is because, I mean, at this point in time, nobody has any allegiance to anybody right now, to any god. It's which one is going to, which one is the best for me. Now, could she have been hedging her bets? Possibly, but but I think it has more to do with I'm going to get back to Dad. I'm going to get back at Dad, but I'm also going to hold on to something for myself. At least there's a perceived value here. So Laban finds out. Laban realizes they're gone, and so he flees, goes on the other side of the Euphrates. He's on his way to the hill country of Gilead, so he's on his way home. And so Laban finds out the 3rd day that they're gone, so he takes his kinsmen or his kids with him, his sons, pursues them for 7 days, and while they were just about ready to catch them, God shows up, and what does God say to Laban?
Watch what you say.
watch what you do.
Yeah, Jacob may be a jerk, but he's my jerk. Because remember, this is all about God's faithfulness, and God's character has nothing to do with Jacob's. And so he says, Laban, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. So Laban comes in. Somebody read 25 to 32.
Then Laban overtook Jacob, and Jacob had pitched his tent in the mountain. And Laban with his brethren pitched in Mount Gilead. And Laban said unto Jacob, what have you done? That you have stolen away unawares to me and carried my daughters away like they were captives taken with a sword. Why did you flee secretly and steal away from me and did not tell me that I might have sent you away with mirth and songs, with instruments and harp, and have not suffered me to kiss my sons and my daughters? Thou hast now done foolishly doing this. 32. And it is in the power of my hand to do you hurt. But the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, take care that you do not speak good or bad to Jacob. And now, though you would needs be gone, because you do sorely long after your father's house, yet why have you stolen my gods? And Jacob said to Laban, because I was afraid, for I said, you would take away by force your daughters from me. And with whomever you find your gods, let him not live, before our brethren discern that what is mine is with me, and you take it. For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen that.
Okay.
That was good. I needed more. Okay, it's like I'm getting dead. I'm not getting undead. This is Laban is going to have. Can you sense the anguish in Laban right at this point? Can you sense the absolute pain of him being deprived of his loved ones and the son-in-law that he loves so much, and just that he would have sent them away because he loved them so much. He wanted to have good feelings and not bad ones. And so therefore, I'm going to have the partay to end all partays, to send you away. So therefore, we can all be happy and we can cry on each other's shoulders, and we can promise that we'll see each other at Christmas and Thanksgiving. That's Laban. And then we get to the real reason. Oh, but okay, I should have been able to do something, because you really wronged me, Jacob. It hurt. I'm not going to lie. It hurt. It was hurtful. It's hurtful what you did. And I was within my rights to do something and to get angry, but your God told me not to. And so, and since I'm not afraid of you, Jake, but I am afraid of your God, like everybody else was in the area. And then we find the real reason. Why'd you take my gods? You took my kids. You took my grandkids. You stole my sheep after I tried to swindle you out of the sheep. We won't talk about that. But Jake, that was low. It was low to take my gods. I'm seeing Jacob going, okay, I don't know where this came from. I don't take your stinking gods. I don't want your gods. I mean, really? I'm having a hard enough time with the God I'm serving. That I'm in this transactional relationship with. I don't have time for anybody else. And so, and then Jacob's like, hey, no, whoever has the gods, man, just take them and kill them. Oh, man. Sometimes they just need to shut up. Jacob didn't learn that.
This is like worse. This is like worse than giving your wife away.
Well, it turns out that way. Yeah.
Here's the thing, you see, Jacob had no issue with him having a transactional relationship with God. And that worked really well as long as he was dealing with himself. The problem is, he taught his children and his wives to have a transactional relationship with God as well. He didn't teach them. Now, I know that Deuteronomy 6 had not been written yet, but the principle of Deuteronomy 6 has been around since Genesis 3. Teach your kids to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Teach your spouse to love the Lord their God with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength. You see, had Jacob done what God had called him to be, as the leader of his family. You see, the male headship of the family is not a New Testament principle. It's not something that God just made up in the 15th century BC. This has always been the case. And if anybody should have known the heartache of what happens when dad doesn't have the guts to do what God has called them to do, you'd think it'd be Jacob. Because Jacob is in this mess because of his father. Because his father did not have the guts to do what God told him to do. And Jacob continues it to where his wife had no regard whatsoever. Because here's the thing, folks. Was it when God told Moses to write the first commandment, you will have no other gods before me? Did God just decide that in 1446 BC? No, that has been the case since Genesis 2. You will have no other gods before me. That has always been the case. God has always been a jealous God. Because there is no other God. Anything else out there is a fake, or is a poor counterfeit that is being buoyed up by a created being who got his wings handed to him when he went up and he tried to rebel against God. You see, unlike what they said here, Marduk lost that battle. We call him Lucifer. And anything else, any other god that's out there, any other pantheon out there, no matter how powerful they seem, they are fallen. They're created. They're not the creator. And Jacob did not teach that to his family. And they would pay for that. And then Jacob gets all upset because, you see, Jacob knew, I didn't do this. But the problem was Jacob didn't realize that because I didn't pass on a passion for God, the passion that I didn't have, to my family, maybe one of them may have taken him. Because is that really outside of anybody in the family of Jacob or Laban? No, it's not. Jacob's thinking about himself. Probably would have been a good idea if Jacob would have said, Dad, hang on a second. Get the wives together, get the concubines together, get the kids together, and say, okay, I need to know here something. Who stole Grandpa's gods? I'm not leaving until you tell me. We're giving them back. That's what he should have done. But no. Jacob's thinking about himself. Yeah, Eric?
Maybe more serious than him just thinking about himself. He's thinking that if he didn't do it, nobody else was going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, at this point,
I'm the top schemer around here. I'm the best, the big con man.
Yeah, and exactly.
Why are you accusing me?
Yeah, those things. You know, are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? In verse 36, and then Jacob became angry, and he berated Laban. And Jacob said to Laban, "What is my offense? What is my sin that you have hotly pursued me? For you have felt through all my goods, and you have found and what have you found of all of your household goods? Set it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, they may decide between us. These 20 years I have been with you, and your eyes and your female goats have not miscarried, and I have not eaten the rams of your flocks. What was torn by wild beasts I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it myself. From my hand you required it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. There I was by day, the heat consumed me, and the cold of the night, and so on. Someone want to pick up there in verse 40?
I've been 20 years in your house. I've served you 14 years for your 2 daughters, 6 years for your cattle, and now you have changed my wages 10 times. Except the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely you would have sent me away empty. God has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked you last night. How far am I going?
Go ahead and read down to 50.
And Laban answered and said to Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that you see is mine. And what can I do this day unto these my daughters, or unto their children which they have borne? Now therefore come, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be for a witness between you and me. And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brothers, gather stones. And they took stones, and they made a heap, and they did eat there on the heap. And Laban called it Jegar-Sadutha, but Jacob called it Galeed. And Laban said, this heap is a witness between me and you today. Therefore the name of it was called Galeed. And Mitzvah, for he said, the Lord watch between me and you when we are absent from another. If you shall afflict my daughters, or if you shall take other wives besides my daughter, no man is with, and no man is that is with us. See, God is a witness between you and me.
Go ahead and read the chapter.
Keep changing my reading 10 times. And Laban said to Jacob, behold this heap and this pillar which I have cast between me and you. This heap be a witness, and this pillar be a witness, that I will not pass over this heap to you, and that you shall not pass over this heap and this pillar to me for harm. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us. And Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered sacrifice on the mountain and called his brothers to eat bread, and they did eat and stayed all night in the mountain. And early in the morning Laban rose up and kissed his sons and his daughters and blessed them, and Laban departed and returned to his home.
Thank you, Jacob. I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, I got to tell you, when I read this, I just get irritated. That's why I had to have somebody else read it, because I could sense my blood pressure start to boil here. We've got two absolute, complete, selfish idiots out there fighting against each other. You know, trying to figure out who's the bigger man. It is just, you know, you got Laban out there saying that these are my daughters, this is my stuff, you have stolen them from me. And I mean, is there any largesse at all in Laban? Does Laban care about anybody else except Laban? No, I don't think so. Not at all. And yet, here you got these two people duking it out. And Jacob is like, how dare you? How dare you? You know, you changed my way. It's like he's obviously, all the stuff he's had pent up, he just lets it go. And then Laban comes out there and says, you know, dude, you cheated me. Now, Laban's not wrong. However, as we like to say, what's that?
Just mildly hypocritical.
Yeah, because
sometimes life is fair. And in this case, life was fair to Laban. I do not feel sorry for Laban at all. No matter how hard I try, I can't.
Did he get his?
What's that?
Did he get his gods back?
No, because Rachel sat on them.
Oh, I did.
And then said, it's my, and Rachel sat on him and said,
Oh,
it's
you
my
skipped
time, I can't move.
Yeah,
No.
it's my time. I can't get up. I'm sorry I can't get up for you, Daddy, but, you know, I would stand up for you, but, you know.
You skipped that one, you said?
Yeah, it was verse 33,
Yeah, we skipped
4,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
35.
I've had us in the gutter enough over the last 2 weeks. I figure we'll go ahead and skip that part. But so yeah, it was one. Yeah, so because again, I mean, everybody's scheming right now. Everyone's out to get whatever they want. Everyone's lying to each other, whatever. And now we got Laban and we got Jacob, you know, yelling at each other at the end here. And Laban finally realizes. I think that somewhere in here, Laban says, you know, I remember what God told me. Yahweh told me, don't mess with them. And so what Laban says is, let's go ahead and have let's let's have a powwow here. Let's make a covenant. And basically, what the covenant comes out to is Laban says, Jacob, you stay over there. I'll stay over here. And that's probably how we'll best get along. And there's no record that Jacob ever sees his father-in-law again. And we know that Rachel never does. And they are away. And Laban comes a point and says, okay, I am going to, before I say something really stupid, because I don't think Laban was afraid of Jacob, because he had a whole bunch of people with him. But he was afraid of Jacob's God. And when Jacob starts talking about the fact that all the things that you did, and then look in verse 42, if the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been on my side, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. Who's missing in this equation here?
God of Jacob.
The God of Abraham. The fear of Isaac. Nothing about his. Because there's no relationship here. No, he gets the relationship coming up, but he doesn't have it now. And the point is that Jacob we are going to find that Jacob is going to reap what he sows. That all of this is to set up that even when Jacob gets into it, I believe that Jacob has I'm going to call it a wake-up experience. And Jacob ends up with a relationship with God. But the problem is, what he set in motion is going to affect him, and it's going to affect his sons. Because Jacob is always going to have a little bit of that schemer in him. And the problem is that when you don't give things up completely to God, the ones that pay the penalty are the ones in your own family. And it's one of the things, and I'll get ready to close with this here. One of the things that has bothered me over the years is, and I'll speak for the evangelical church, because this is pretty much true across the board in the evangelical church. Folks, the evangelical church in 2022 have lost our kids. Our kids. I think here at FCC, folks, if we had just the children of our folks who have kids who live in the area, who don't go to church anywhere, if they were to come with their families, we'd have to have 2 services. Easy. And I don't want to put a lot of guilt, because kids are responsible for their own behavior, for their own actions. So I don't want to put too much on there. But I do want to say this. What that tells me is that the church has failed. It does take, as much as I hate to quote Hillary Clinton, it does take a village in some ways. It does take. I was kind of hoping if a lightning bolt hit, we're heavily insured. But the thing is, folks, is that what happens in the family matters. We are called to come alongside. And I think that, and God has given us an incredible privilege. He has brought in some more young kids. And as a church, I really hope that we do better. That that's one of those. It's always been one of the big fear of mine. We're not supposed to walk in fear, but as a pastor, and one of the things that if I can be godly proud, is the fact that my kids, when I was a youth pastor, my kids when I was in Indiana, they're still serving the Lord. Most of them are still serving the Lord. I am so happy about that. Because that tells me that the church did a pretty good job. It's not because I did a good job. The church did a good job. That they were able to come alongside. I know in my own family, in my own life, I am a pastor today because of the people that were in the church who spent time with me. Because I went to churches for the most of my life and my parents did not go. I learned how to be a godly man from singing in the choir and making friends with the Frank Burr, Harold Sprague, Bob and Eleanor and others, and seeing these folks who came alongside. I can remember when I was in third grade, my dad was in Saudi Arabia, and Don Buckles, who was kind of like Bruce Dutch here, he owned Rocky Home Dairy, took me out for a Coke every week. I love the church because I see what it can do. I'm here because of the church. And that's what we see here, is that Jacob was going to do what, Jacob was going to serve the Lord, and he did, for what God would give him. But there was no relationship there. And because of that, his family suffered. And outside of Joseph, there's no record that any of them really served God. That's 1 out of 12, folks. And God had to take Joseph and put him into Egypt to make that happen. So I really want to see this as a warning for us. And I think especially as we've got Brandon Aspen and as God is bringing in other little ones out here, is that God has entrusted them to us. And I'm hoping on our watch that doesn't happen. Because every church is one generation away from extinction. And the evangelical church across the board is doing a really poor job reaching their kids. Not just us. It is across the board. In fact, right now, this is interesting. The only Protestant church right now in America that's keeping their kids is the independent, fundamentalist Baptists. The ones that all the evangelicals look down on. But yet, they're the places where you'll see 3 and 4 generations in church. They're doing something right. And, the culture doing a better job than we are. So, I'll get off the soapbox on that one. But it's heavy on my heart. And every time I go through Jacob, and every time I look at this, because I know what's coming. I know what's coming in 2 chapters. And I know the pain that his family is going to put out there on the rest of the world, so that there's a reason why God has to pull them out, because if not, they are going to bring so much disrepute on the name of Yahweh from these idiots that came from Jacob. And because he didn't have the guts to do what was right, he didn't pass it on. Thoughts or comments there? End us on a happy note here, somebody. Let me end up on this happy note here, that I am so grateful for 1 John 4, or for 1 John 1, right? Because it is true that if we are, that even as a church, that God's never done with us. So even if there's always hope. And the best way to market any church is by change lives. And so what I'm hoping is that even in our church here, that our kids who are right now far away from God in some ways, that they would look to mom and dad and the other friends that they're around and say, hey, maybe there's something to this. Because God can still do that. Because there's never, as long as there's breath, there's always hope. And I'm an eternal optimist when it comes to that. And I'm just thinking, how long have you guys been praying for this big lug to be in church? Long time. And so, like I say, there's always, because God can do that. So I was, and I'm blessed, even if it's on a special Sunday, and I'm seeing a couple of generations, I'm seeing the kids coming, whatever it is, because I know that I like the vibe that's here. And there's something that's different than what was here when I got here 11 years ago. Much more, I don't know if I would have attended this church 11 years ago if I wasn't paid to come here. I'll be real. I got to tell you, I would now. I can't wait to come back if I'm gone. Okay, it's not because of the preacher. I know him. I can't wait because of the people I'm around. And the thing is that I think that that's something that it can be very, very attractive to our kids. So I'm not saying that to say that there's no hope, because there's always hope. And that and I think that as our kids see, as our adult kids begin to see that, hey, there's something with these folks, maybe I might want to come back. And so I have not given hope. I have not given up on looking out and putting 3 generations of any one family to sleep in one Sunday. I put 3 generations of Grabers to sleep once in Portland, Oregon. I was on that day. I put grandpa to sleep, son to sleep, grandson to sleep, all in the same sermon. I'm like, yes. And
Well, it must have been really good.
well, the grandpa used to he used to do this. And I'd throw something, and he'd open an eye every once in a while. He was awake. I mean, Don heard every word I ever said. But it was, and then his son was a lot like him, so he was he was awake. The grandson was snoozing, but he was like, a year, so it was okay. But the thing was that it was so cool because, again, I had 3 generations there that I was able, and that's something that is there's just something about that. And I think that God can do that because God is a God of second chances. God is never done with us. He can do plan B, and I have not given up hope, and I can still, in my mind, I can still see this place packed out with parents and their kids and their grandkids all here at the same time. And I'm standing on that. I believe that, and I think that God's gonna pull it off. And it's just because of what He's already doing here. So that's my good news for the day. So somebody want to close us in prayer, and then we'll pick up on some more the bravery of Jacob. We'll look at that next week, and then we'll take a look at which is kind of a fun story, and then we'll get to the really depressing stuff afterwards that will let us know why they're going into Egypt. Anybody want to pray for us? Pastoral scan here.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the teaching today. And Father, it's in your word, you show us examples of people who have drifted away, but then you've brought them back. And it's a good example for us as we look at our own families and our own lives. And so, Father, we thank you for that. We thank you for the evening. We thank you for each one here today. We pray your blessing on them in the precious and glorious name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Okay, so next week we will pick it up in 32. So.